One of them we cooked today.
Haven't seen it for a while.
Hey, Matt.
What up?
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah. Millbrae's below us, of course.
They said they're not going to have the train show up unless we spread out on the platform.
What?
They're not gonna stop the train for us.
Apparently they.
They won't stop.
Shall we go that way?
I don't care.
Well, not only that, we're probably not going to fit if we all sit in one car. We could still chant in multiple cars.
Trains were buried up to 16 minutes. 2-door train for San Francisco, Millbrae, San Francisco Airport in 24 minutes.
You guys ready for the march?
Yeah.
All right. Is anybody more? No, that's it, right? Guys ready for the march? Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Ready for the march?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Ready for the march? Yeah. Ready for the march? Yeah? You guys ready for the march? Yeah! Yeah!
We're ready. Let's go.
Ready for the march? Ready for the march here? Yeah!
Absolutely.
Ready for the march?
3-door train
Yeah?
for San Francisco Airport in 5
I hope we're going to be louder when we get there. Yeah, yeah.
2-door train for San Francisco, Millbrae, San
Ready for the march? Yeah. Ready for the march? Ready for the march? All right. Ready for the march? We're going to be loud out there, right? Yeah.
It's amazing. Does that drive like right away?
Nice.
Pretty fast.
Oh,
That
man.
drives really fast. Get the line and then the color in. So
Beautiful.
This is here in the BART station right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
some of that.
Cool.
This year's Animal Liberation Conference.
Yeah. That's Cassie speaking. Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks.
No virus. But I got really one place
We're going to own this train.
It's joining the conversation.
I'm here to go wake them up. Dude, what's up, dude? Feels good.
I'll find a trash can.
Someone did it. Are you kidding? Is this your first time? Is this your first time here? How are you gonna do like ever do like amazing. I'm so happy to be here with you. First time in Hawaii. Oh, it smells like LA.
LA doesn't smell like that.
Definitely smells like in like ground and reassembled forms,
Right,
which
right.
is why burgers make so much sense to
Right.
us. The Filipinos is not like that. Wow, look at that. Is this the annual Liberation Conference?
Oh, yes, it is. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. Busy without
Yeah. Is everybody holding that or just a few? I'm probably going to be together. Oops, sorry.
Hello! Hi! Our audio equipment is on the way, so I need your help. We are going to do a mic check. So when I say mic check, you say.
Mic check!
Okay, so
Mic check!
if you are doing speak out at some point.
Alright, where the hell's the trash can? Sure, but these are not the official. This is like my promotion.
That's a big lens. I thought mine was big.
Yeah, it's fun. Yours might be better than mine, though.
No, I doubt it.
This is a Sigma. I love it. But
Yeah. Is that like a 500?
it's a 150 to 600.
600, yeah.
Yeah. I like
Crazy
it.
big.
Well,
Yeah.
I like it. Yours is probably fun too, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of expensive, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yep.
Serge, how you doing, Serge? Kimito. Yeah. How you doing? Good. Yeah, doing good. You doing all this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you been good?
Yeah, good.
Sorry. I'm just using it as a monitor. This is the camera.
It's okay to shoot.
It's up to you.
doesn't matter.
It's up to you. Just that this camera, it's actually, this is the camera here, and that actually takes a 16 by 9. Yeah. It's called a DJI Pocket. Yeah. It'll do 4K. Yeah. Yeah. Hey Christina, how you doing? Yeah, good to see you. 19 people from Colorado, I think.
Yeah.
Sounds good, huh? Honey! Doing good! Wow! So you made it!
I did.
Yeah, cool.
My cousin Leah lives here.
Hello! My name is Kimito.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Alright.
So I told her to come with me.
Yeah, good.
She's so
Yeah. This is gonna be cool.
Yeah, it is.
Alright, enjoy! Yeah.
Beautiful. It's even more beautiful than all of us.
Wow, we got a motorcade? Nice. Oh, this is a nice bike.
Thank you.
That's a nice bike too. You got that? Need help? Thanks. Oh. You got it?
Got it. Oh yeah. Love your shoes.
Please move to the dressy area so we can get started with the briefing and the rally before the march. Thank you.
Should we make one?
What?
Should we make one?
Make one what? Ahead?
This is a chicken, right?
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A!
I was looking at the duct tape.
Animals, and today's march is part of the Animal Liberation Conference, a week-long conference of animal rights activists getting trained, going to talks, and of course taking action for animals, which is, as we know, super important. The conference is organized by Direct Action Everywhere, or DXE, and DXE is an international grassroots animal rights network using non-violent direct action to create revolutionary social and political change for animals in our generation. DXE has events all the time, so if you're not already plugged into the chapter here in the Bay Area, go to dxe.io/apply and we'll get you signed up and you can join this community for change. That's dxe.io/apply. So now we're going to go over the briefing, then we'll practice our chants, we'll have a rally, and then we'll get underway with today's march. So I'm going to pass it over to Tanya now.
Thanks, Matthew, and thanks to all of you for being here today. I want to talk a little bit about the purpose of this march. So today, as you may see, we have a lot of banners that say right to home and habitat. So what's all that about? Today we are here to raise awareness about Rose's Law and Animal Bill of Rights. And I'm wondering how many of you have heard of Rose's Law? Well, it sounds like a lot of you have, but if you haven't, or maybe even if you have, I want to share a story with you. September 29th marks the 3-year anniversary of the rescue of a chicken named Rose. And that's a day that I'm never going to forget. And probably some of you will never forget that day too. And the reason is that on that day 3 years ago, dozens of activists went to a chicken farm here in California to expose what's happening inside the facility and to rescue animals so that they could have the life that they deserve. But unfortunately, that day, animal control took the animals from the activists' hands and killed them. But there was one chicken who made it out, and she was brought to a sanctuary, and she was named Rose. And Rose inspired a worldwide movement of people taking non-violent direct action and engaging in civil disobedience to demand the rights that all animals deserve. And this is important because we know that welfare reforms are not enough and are not providing the relief that animals deserve. And we know that asking for better treatment or bigger cages is not enough and is not what the animals need. What the animals need is to have the right to live, free from harm and exploitation. They deserve to have the right to a protected home and habitat. And they deserve the right to be represented in court, protected by the law, and rescued from situations of distress. And that is what we're here to get. We're here to share that powerful message with the thousands of passersby who are going to see us here in San Francisco, and to let them know that a better world is possible. So thank you for getting us a step closer to the world that we want to see.
Connection, and I see it as no less than the evolution of human consciousness. There are so many reasons to be vegan with that crazy word. Thanks to Melanie Joy for coming up with the term carnist to explain what normal is in our society, which is you think that eating meat is natural, normal, and necessary. It is not any of those things. Veganism is natural. I wish I had your voice, man. You don't even need a microphone. It's awesome. So, for every possible reason, there are too many to enumerate. I just want to reflect back. I'm not going to say anything you don't already know, but I find there's great value in just reflecting back to you what this movement represents. How many hundreds of people here, self-identified as vegan, plant-based, I don't eat animals, whatever you want to call it, the term didn't exist 20 years ago. I'm old enough to remember. There was vegetarian, there wasn't this. The bigger connections, intellectually, psychically, emotionally, spiritually, and from your heart. All the good reasons to treat animals as same as us. It's not a biblical hierarchy. We have no dominion over the animals. They are our equals. And just like we were taught in kindergarten, all of us knew it then, but we were taught about a web of life, right? All equal, all connected, all equally valuable. Like Spider-Man. Exactly. And so, this is kind of like coming back to both ancient tribal cultures who all knew this, and even if they did eat animals, because there were so fewer humans, you could do that. It is no longer that way. There are so many billions of us humans, supposedly the most intelligent species on the planet, but I freaking doubt it anymore. We can't do what we used to do. So this is the new consciousness. As we harm animals, we harm ourselves. We also harm ourselves. This took me a while to get. Dr. Will Tuttle, 35-year vegan, taught me this one. Psychically. When we suppress a part of ourselves that knows it's wrong as children and push it down because we have to fit into society, we harm ourselves. We deny a part of ourselves that knows we're connected to the animal kingdom. I just realized I have a memory. My father, who loved me very much, I was this cute little kid named Jackie. And he taught me how to take a living worm and put it onto a hook. And it's wriggling as I'm impaling it, killing it, torturing it. Because it's a worm and we're going to go fishing. And that's what you do in America. Circa 1965, kids. So why? So that I can then catch a fish and pull it out of the water so it asphyxiates. Not because we needed the fish to eat, but because it's a sport, it's a recreation. And again, that's my father who loved me, and I loved him, and that's what I was taught. And that goes back to the other big thing I want to say, which is cultural conditioning. We don't know any better. So for you guys, you're demanding, as we march today and people see us and hear us and feel us, as somebody said here, to be respectful back to people, even if they're angry at us. I don't even anticipate that. This is San Francisco. People are mostly on our side to begin with. But we can show the media watching today who we are and how much we feel. So for you guys, the challenge may be to have compassion for people who aren't there yet. They are future vegans, again, as Will Tuttle taught me. So, anyway, I could go on, but I won't. I just want to end with one quote by somebody. Ever heard of the Pythagorean theorem in school? Well, he has a better theorem that I'd never heard of until recently, hundreds of years ago. This isn't new, folks. It's just spreading through the culture. As long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of other living beings, he will never know health or peace. For as long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other. So I'm Jack Gescheit of the Tree Spirit Project, and I came to this through Cowspiracy, as was said, where I met In Defense of Animals, and now I'm their lead campaigner on their Thule Elk initiative, which, if you want to be involved locally but act globally, come see me in my yellow jacket, and I can tell how with In Defense of Animals, I'll give you one of these cards, and get involved here in that way. I want to thank DXE, PETA, IDA, Tree Spirit Project, and the other groups I haven't met yet, and looking forward to marching with you today. Thank you. You're the leading edge of consciousness. I love being with you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jack. I keep forgetting I have to be back here. No, thank you. Now I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Zoe Rosenberg. She founded Happy Hand Animal Sanctuary, is an organizer with Direct Action Everywhere, and a UC Berkeley student. Over the last several years, she has rescued over 1,000 animals from factory farms and slaughterhouses. And in addition to these rescues, she has traveled the country giving speeches to share their stories, including a TED Talk in 2018. Now a student at Cal, she is campaigning for the school to become the first major university in the United States to remove meat from their dining hall. So let's welcome Zoe.
Over the summer, I investigated a factory farm owned by Tyson Foods. It was a heavily secured facility with tall fences, locked doors, and security guards patrolling throughout the night. It took us several days of trying before we even made it into one of the barns. But once we did, I understood why they were so paranoid about anyone getting in. What was happening to these animals was horrific. Nearly all of the chickens were suffering from severe mobility issues. They could barely walk, and many couldn't even stand. They would flap their wings desperately, trying to get the leverage they needed to get up. But it was no use. Their wings would hit the feces-covered ground and become bloodied and bruised. A lot of the chickens were also on their backs dying. This is a condition so common in meat chickens on factory farms that it even has a name. It's called keel over and die syndrome. It's when meat chickens, who have been bred to grow so large so quickly, succumb to their own weight and have a heart attack. They end up on their backs, dying, struggling to breathe. They die slow, excruciating deaths. Another horror about this facility was that nearly everything and everyone was covered in flies. They were crawling on the chickens' backs, necks, and faces, putting them at an increased risk of fly strike, which is when an animal gets eaten alive by maggots. We decided to rescue one of the hens, later named Hannah, who couldn't walk and was being particularly attacked by the flies. I lifted her into my arms and I promised her that everything was going to be okay. But as soon as I did, I received a message on my walkie-talkie from my lookout. A security guard was circling the barn we were in his truck. As you can imagine, my heart started pounding. I began looking around the barn, trying to think of a place where we could hide or a way we could get out if the security guard came in. And I held Hannah close, because I didn't want to break the promise that I had literally just made. Eventually, after the longest couple minutes of my life, the security guard drove away. We grabbed one other chicken who was collapsed on the ground, and we left as quickly as we could. On our way off the property, we hid in the tree line so we were covered by the shadows. I vividly remember thinking about the irony of the situation. We were rescuing abused animals, and we were the ones hiding. We were hiding in the shadows, while animal abusers walked freely in the light. They should have been hiding from us, but we were hiding from them. When I think about why, I think it all comes down to money, to greed. Our society is so centered around financial gain that our government and our laws ignore and even exempt major corporations from facing consequences for their violent actions. Our society is so centered around financial gain that our government and our laws ignore whistleblower reports and even prosecute the people who expose these injustices and rescue the victims. Corporations like Tyson are powerful, not because what they are doing is right, but because what they are doing produces profits. And because of greed, the exploitation of animals, both human and non-human, has been accepted, ignored, and protected throughout human history. But it is time to face it and end it once and for all. Animals deserve to be free from the exploitation imposed by human society. But that will only happen if we come together and fight for it. I want you all to think about all of the animals suffering right now on factory farms. All of the animals having their throats slit in slaughterhouses. All of the innocent beings living and dying in pain. They scream out for our help in the cover of darkness. Their cries muffled by stone walls and closed doors. Their torture is protected by rich and powerful corporations that create fear with no trespassing signs and the looming threat of felony charges. We stand on the sidelines and we do exactly what these corporations want us to do. We make excuses for our inaction. We are too busy, too tired, too scared. Meanwhile, they writhe in pain, gasp for air, and finally grow still in death. And they will never care why we couldn't be there. Because we were their only hope. And we failed them. We have to do better. We have to put our excuses aside and place our lives, our bodies, our freedom on the line to protect them. We have to. As many of you know, Rose's Law was named after Rose, a beautiful disabled hen who was rescued from a factory farm in 2018. Rose lived with me for the majority of her life, and it is for her that I will fight for Rose's Law, for every tear. But the freedom from exploitation is especially important, because once animals are no longer used for financial gain, there will be no reason, regardless of how unjustifiable that reason might be, to abuse and kill them in mass. There will be no reason to protect this torture. So, let's come together and fight animal exploitation, because if we put animal exploitation behind us, maybe we can finally start to see non-human animals as equals. Maybe we can finally live in peace. So let's take action in every way that we can. Let's ask legislators to pass Rose's Law and march to the streets like we're doing today. Let's chain ourselves to animal abusing institutions to stop them from operating as usual. Let's walk onto factory farms proudly with our heads held high and rescue the animals from exploitation. Everything could stay the same. Or we could leave our comfort zones behind and do everything we can to change it. The choice is yours. But I, for one, hope that we will all come together and fight until every animal is safe and happy and free. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe, for that beautiful speech and for everything that you do for animals. Throughout this conference, you've heard how we are trying to build more coalitions with other groups outside the animal rights movement. And for that reason, I'm really excited to be introducing our next two speakers. We have Heather Phipps, who's an organizer with Extinction Rebellion here in the Bay Area. She has helped create actions at major banks in San Francisco, as well as on the streets throughout the Bay Area. Extinction Rebellion San Francisco recently launched a divestment campaign targeting Wells Fargo to demand that they stop funding climate-destroying fossil fuel projects and start funding a green future to protect our planet for both humans and animals. So everyone, welcome Heather Phipps.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Good afternoon, fellow animal lovers. I'm Heather Phipps, and I'm with Extinction Rebellion, SF Bay, which is one chapter in a very large global nonviolent direct action movement to compel our governments and corporations to address the climate and ecological emergency and mitigate the effects of the climate catastrophe we're in. We are chiefly concerned with our elected leaders stopping human suffering, the sixth mass extinction of non-human species, and the ecological collapse of which are all occurring as I speak. We need our elected leaders to ensure the planet we all call home is habitable for future generations. XR was established in 2018 in the UK, and XR groups quickly sprouted across the globe, including many in the US, such as XR SF Bay. XR chapters in the US have 4 demands. The first demand is that our governments must tell the truth about the climate and wider ecological emergency, and it must reverse all policies not in alignment with that position, and must work alongside the media to communicate the urgency of change, including what individuals, communities, and especially what corporations like the banking and fossil fuel industries need to do. The government must enact, our second demand is that the government must enact legally binding policies to reduce carbon emissions to net zero by 2025 and take further action to remove the excess of atmospheric greenhouse gases. Our third demand, we demand a citizens' assembly to oversee the changes as we rise from the wreckage, creating a democracy fit for purpose for all. And our fourth demand, we demand a just transition that prioritizes the most vulnerable people and indigenous sovereignty. We demand that reparations are established and remediation of contamination is led by and for Black people, indigenous people, people of color, and poor communities for the years of environmental injustice they have endured and continue to endure. A just transition will also establish legal rights for ecosystems to thrive and regenerate in perpetuity, and will repair the effects of ongoing ecocide to prevent extinction of human and all species in order to maintain a livable and just planet for all of us. In alignment with the XR demands, XR SF Bay has kicked off a campaign targeting Wells Fargo, or what we are calling Wells Fracco, just this month on September 17th. There are many reasons we are focusing on Wells Fracco, and these are just a few of the climate-destroying activities that we want them to stop in order to ensure we have a habitable planet. Wells Fracco is the #1 private bank funding methane gas fracking, which pollutes and destroys our environment in so many ways, especially our groundwater and precious drinking water aquifers. Wells Fargo is the #2 U.S. funder of Line 3, which is a dirty tar sands oil project happening in Minnesota right now. The dirty pipeline project is in direct violation of indigenous treaty rights and threatens the wild rice, which is a sacred food for the indigenous people in that region. Wells Fargo is #3 overall as a private bank funder of fossil fuels, according to Rainforest Action Network, in a report called Banking on Climate Chaos. Wells Fargo has numerous investment funds as well that put money into the top 100 military contractors, as well as investing in nuclear weapons, which would obviously destroy our planet. So in order to help us with this campaign, you all can join us. You can all join us by scanning this QR code here, which will take you to our website. There you can take a pledge to divest from Wells Fargo, and you will also find a resource there for green and socially responsible banks that you can move your money to. So thank you very much, and I just want to end my time by thanking the organizers of Direct Action Everywhere for inviting us to speak today. And my hope is that we can continue to make connections between Bay Area animal rights, social justice, and climate justice organizations, so we can support each other's actions and campaigns and grow our powerful movements together. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Now I'm excited to introduce Nick, who's an organizer with 350 Bay Area, who they focus on mobilizing people to take direct action. They're an expert in forced displacement, environmental refugees, and the global impacts of climate change on human, non-humans, and the living environment we share our homes with. They believe that we cannot overcome the terrors of oppression on our own, and that we are stronger when we fight together. Let's welcome Nick.
Thank you all for welcoming me into your space. What a great crowd today. First, I'd like to recognize the stolen lands of the Ramaita Shaloni people before I begin. So thank you all for having me today, and I'm glad we can share community on this land. So Rose's Law talks about exploitation, right? The exploitation of animals, stealing their lives, profit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we focus on at 350 Bay Area, targeting the corporations and the politicians who have been framing the environmental movement for too long, right? So if anybody's ever told you, oh, you need to recycle, oh, go vegan for the planet, oh, do this and this and this and this and this, you are probably saying an industry line, right? You are doing something that furthered the progress of money for fossil fuel companies, and that was it, right? That takes away the momentum from direct action against the polluters, against the companies that are extracting our resources, against the people that are making sure that the planet is not livable, right? There's a tired saying in the environmental movement, it's that the planet is dying. Well, the planet's not dying. The planet's not dying. I'm here to tell you, the planet is being systemically and intentionally murdered for profit in a way that makes it unlivable for all of us to achieve a life together with ourselves, with everybody here in community, everybody enjoying the day, with non-human animals alike, right? So that is what we are trying to do in our movement, is refocus away from what, 1970s, Exxon knew global warming is coming and it's going to make it harder for people to live. And you know what they did? They got a shit ton of lawyers and they hid behind them. And then they started doing things like, what is your carbon footprint? That's bullshit. Don't care about your carbon footprint. What is your personal impact in your neighborhood? That's bullshit too. That doesn't mean anything. At this point, there are no factories in the US that can recycle anything. It just goes to a landfill. And then when we talk about landfills, we talk about destruction of the environment. The human is the only animal in the world that is destroying itself, that is destroying the land, that can create more waste than good around the world. And that's what we're trying to talk about in the environmental movement, is none of this things where it's like, go hug a tree, that's great. But no, somebody's going to take that tree for profit and they're going to turn it into smoke. They're going to burn coal, they're going to burn oil, they're going to keep extracting resources from the ground, whether they're precious minerals, oil, gas, and they're going to suffocate us. Fossil fuels are killing us, and then they're making it so that we have to fight each other for minimal resources. We have to be distracted around things like, oh, you should eat meat, it's fine, it's cultural. It's not fine. These are all industry lines to confuse us. We heard earlier about culture, right? So what we have to do in the environmental movement, across all movements, right? We see on the border this week, right? The US government is whipping black migrants seeking asylum. And you know what they did? They outlawed the horses, right? Missed the point. They said the horses were the bad thing. Not the humans beating other humans. Not the humans exploiting horses to beat other humans. Right? Those people are fleeing ecological collapse. Those people have a right to exist. Those people have a right to live in freedom and in peace. And we need to be reframing the movement, both the environmental movement and all social justice movements, on the right to life. Always the right to life, the right to happiness, the right to freedom, the ability to live together in a world that is not being exploited, that is not being destroyed, that is not making our lives, our freedom, and our health somebody else's bank account that much bigger. And that is what we are talking about, 350 Bay Area, reframing and taking on the fossil fuel industries and saying, you cannot kill us, because fossil fuels are killing us every single day. Every single day that we are alive, fossil fuels are killing us for somebody else's profit. And that's what we're trying to talk about in the environmental movement now. That's where we're going. We're talking about direct action, the way y'all talk about direct action, and shutting down banks, shutting down pipelines, going down to Chevron refinery and making sure they don't get any business done for the day, right? There's a giant monolithic, literal mountain of death just across the bay, spewing pollution across the bay every single day. Every single day. And it does it with impunity, right? So where are the politicians, the corporations trading away our lives? That's what we have to be finding. That's where we have to be doing direct action, and that is where disruption happens, and that is where freedom is. Destroying the corruption, destroying the cultural rot, and moving towards a life that is worth living together, right? Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Now for our last speaker is Wayne Sean. He's a lawyer and co-founder of the global grassroots animal rights network, Direct Action Everywhere. Wayne has led teams that have rescued dozens of animals from factory farms and is co-author of 2 reports on pandemics in animal agriculture. His work as an open rescue activist has been reported on in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and ABC's Nightline. So let's all welcome Wayne Sean.
Hey, Sonia, and I know we're all itching to march, so I'll try and keep it brief, but I got to tell you the story of a friend of mine and a friend of his. The friend is my buddy Matt Johnson, who's one of my best friends in the world. Matty, are you here? I think he's here somewhere. But Matt is my friend who's facing felony charges 2 months from today. So 2 months, he's going to go to Iowa, he's going to go into court, and he could go to prison for 8 years. He's going to be taken from his family, from his friends, from the people you see around us today, for something he did to help another person by the name of Gilly. Gilly was the piglet who Matt risked his freedom to save. And I want to tell you a little bit about Matt and Gilly's story because it is going to help you understand why it's so important for us to march today. You see, Gilly was not a normal pig in a factory farm. She was the rare pig who had lost all of her value, not just because she was sick, because she happened to be a pig at a very unique point in history. A pig at a point in history where all the slaughterhouses have been shut down. In March 2020, COVID was spreading through slaughterhouses. These are crowded, filthy places where workers are standing right up next to each other. And back in the summer of 2020, there were some statistics showing that 14% of all the COVID-19 cases across this country were coming from slaughterhouses. 14%. Hundreds of thousands of people sick. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. And 14% of them are coming from slaughterhouses and factory farms. To the human beings, not just to the animals. And so we shut down these slaughterhouses. But the result of this is you've got all these millions of pigs across the country who no longer have any value because they cannot be slaughtered for their masters. And Gilly had the sad fate, the unlucky fate, of being a pig who no longer had any value. So what happened at ISF, the farm that she was at, Iowa Select Farms, was something that was happening across the country and across the world. And it's a practice called ventilation shutdown. A lot of you have heard of this. It's gruesome, awful, but if you haven't seen the footage as I've seen it, I just want to describe it just very briefly. Ventilation shutdown is a practice where, because these animals no longer have any value, they don't want to waste the money to feed them, to get them water, to give them any care, they shut down all the vents in the facility. They pump in steaming hot air, 200 degrees or higher. Air that's so hot that the water literally is boiling and turning into steam. And they slowly roast the pigs alive. So when you watch this footage, it's incredibly disturbing because the pigs don't initially realize what is happening. They're in a new place, they're clamoring around, they're wondering what's going on? Why did they take us to this new place? And they start realizing, wait, the air's a little bit weird in here, I can't breathe. Then they start to see the steam coming in. You can see them getting a little more nervous and worried. They start clamoring over each other. And eventually they start realizing, wait a minute, this steam isn't stopping. This heat isn't stopping. It's getting hotter and hotter. It's getting into my eyes. It's in my nose. It's in my ears. It's in my lungs. And I can no longer breathe. And so they're running around. They're crawling over each other. They're desperate to escape this place because they are being boiled alive. All of us have felt what it's like to be too hot. If you've touched a stove, you know how much that hurts. You know you pull away because it hurts even for just a moment to have too much heat on your finger. And for hundreds of thousands of animals in Iowa, this happened over the course of hours and hours. And wherever they went in these farms, no matter where they climbed, they could not find a way to escape. So all they could do was scream in agony until they died. This is what was happening in Iowa because of COVID-19. This is what was happening because of factory farming. And this practice was so awful, so disgusting and monstrous that even the employees at ISF revolted and started speaking out. And one of them, a guy by the name of Lucas Walker, whose name you should remember because this guy's a hero, did something that pig farmers almost never do. Because he reached out to his company, his bosses, and said, how can we do this? Sorry, I'm down for slaughtering pigs, but boiling them alive? Hell no, I'm not doing this. His company said, nah, I don't care what you have to say. He reached out to the government and said, hey, Iowa government, this is a violation of the animal cruelty laws. I work in this industry. I'm not some radical animal rights activist. I'm part of a pig farming operation. This is not okay. Please do something. You know what the government of Iowa did? They completely ignored every single request he sent. And so he did something that pig farmers almost never do. He reached out to an animal rights activist, a guy by the name of Matt Johnson. Right, and Matt Johnson at the time was very busy with the campaign for mayor, my campaign for mayor. But he decided, you know what, this is too important. I have to drop everything. And on a few days' notice, Matt Johnson flies into Iowa with a team of activists. Gets cameras inside those facilities, gets audio recorders inside those facilities, and takes one lucky piglet, Gilly the piglet, out of there alive. So the net result of this is you have journalists across the nation, including a Pulitzer Prize winner by the name of Glenn Greenwald, saying this is an atrocity. You have veterinarians, thousands of veterinarians signing petitions saying this is totally against everything we stand for, every principle of animal welfare we believe in. Please shut this down. You even have other workers at ISF protesting, including one of the first 10 workers employed by the company. He had been there for decades who said, nah, I'm not doing this. This is not okay even for me. And despite all this outcry by activists, by journalists, by even the company's own employees, you know what the government of Iowa did after they found out this was happening in factory farms? They didn't stop the torture of animals. They didn't stop boiling these poor pigs alive. They are trying to put my friend Matt in prison for this. In prison for 8 years. I cannot describe how angry this makes me. How disgusted I am with our government right now for doing this to Matt and to those pigs. And frankly, it's so bad sometimes I feel defeated. I'm just like, what the hell? What the hell? They're boiling pigs alive and you're going to put the guy in prison who exposed it and not the company that's doing this? But here's the key thing. I've come to realize that there is a very easy 3-word response to what the government is doing that fires me up and gets me ready to fight and march and rescue more animals from these awful, evil places. And those 3 words are, bring it on. Bring it on. And I'll tell you why. I am not afraid of this prosecution and why I know Matt is not afraid either. I'll tell you why we need to bring it on, because for every person they put in prison, there are going to be 10 people to step up and replace Matt Johnson. So bring it on, because as much as they try to cover these things up with ag-gag laws and the AETA, millions of people will hear about what's happening in these factory farms as a result of this trial, and their conscience will be awakened. But the most important point, and the most important reason I say bring it on, is because this is not just a trial of Matt Johnson. In fact, it's not really a trial of Matt and the animal rights movement at all. This is a trial, we're going to put the industry on trial. This is a battle between 2 competing visions. And their vision is quite clear. We believe in a world where baby pigs are roasted alive. We believe in a world where profit is more important than anything else. And we believe in a world that's a little different, a lot different than that. We believe in a world where every animal, where every human being is treated with decency and kindness. And my friends, the reason I say bring it on is because in that battle of visions, a vision of the world filled with cruelty and suffering and selfishness and exploitation, and a vision of the world where we treat everybody with kindness, that is a battle we can win, even in rural Iowa. So this is why it is so important for us to be here today, to speak, to march, and yes, to take direct action to save animals. And this is why I'm so proud to be with you all today. And frankly, there could be possibly no better place in the world to have this march, because just a few blocks away, San Francisco became one of the first 2 cities in the nation to pass a resolution in support of the right to rescue animals from abuse. So if you believe in this, if you believe the people of San Francisco and the government of San Francisco believe in this, which you should because they already passed the resolution, then let's get out there and fucking march. Let's raise our voices and let's make our vision of a world where every animal is free a reality. Thank you very much, and let's get out there and do this.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, everybody, last call. Folks who are carrying the bull. Okay, March, let's go. Okay, drummers, please come to the front. Any drums, please come to the front. Drummers and chanters, please come to the front. Drummers and chanters. We're gonna line up right before we take the street. What's that? Yeah, the bike's coming. What's that? I got Tony's bike right here. Bring it down. Hey, scissors. Stay around the head and around the banner. I can't stop it. Yeah, everybody else can stop. Everybody just hold still with the banner. Come up. Right on the edge there, okay? Get up to the edge. All right, everybody except for Michael, stop.
keep coming, everybody, back to the.
Stay on the sidewalk.
And yeah. Don't be in the middle. Be on the edges. You're not catching the wagon, right? Yeah. All right, y'all, we got our first speaker.
3 years ago, almost exactly, it was late September of 2018, I was one of more than 50 people who walked onto a so-called free-range chicken farm in Sonoma County. Here's what I saw on that free-range farm. Hundreds of chickens huddled inside dark, filthy sheds. Here's what I smelled on that day. The sharp stink of ammonia and rotting flesh. As all of us here know, all of us in this community know, humans have bred chickens to grow way too fast. Their bodies develop unnaturally. Their breast area is too heavy. It causes many physical problems. Problems with balance, weak bones that break easily. They often fall and can't get up. Respiratory difficulties. But it's one thing to know these things objectively, and it's completely different to see individuals right in front of your eyes suffering terribly and not be able to help them. However, on that day, we did help one individual. That was Rose. She was suffering so terribly that even the cops took pity and allowed her to be taken off the farm, taken to a veterinarian who actually cared about her well-being and gave her the care she needed to save her life. And she was given a home where she was loved, cared for, respected, and allowed to enjoy the company of happy members of her own species. Now we have Rose's Law, a proposed law that seeks to establish fundamental rights for all animals, starting with that most basic right to their own body.
One,
Factory farm! Factory farm! Factory farm!
Between the floppy-eared little pigs I had seen at the farm nearby and the sliced-up sausages I saw on my plate. So you can imagine my surprise on that fateful day in second grade art class. My second grade art teacher stood in front of the class behind a plastic skeleton. We were going to be drawing skeletons that day. This part of the body is the rib. Did you know that when you eat barbecue ribs, you're actually eating the ribs from a dead pig? Who here eats ribs? Astonished, I raised my hand. That afternoon, I rode home in the back of my mom's car. Mom, is it true that ribs actually come from dead animals? Well, actually, Liam, all meat comes from dead animals. I felt shocked because I didn't know the exception to the rule. We don't eat dead insects, and we don't eat dead humans, but dead pigs? I didn't know that was totally fine and normal. Nobody taught me. That was the last day I ate dead animals. They say that animal exploitation is ingrained in our culture. They say that people are stuck in their ways, and that animal ag is a crucial part of our economy. But over the past 200 years, our culture has changed in so many other ways. We've shaped our culture, expanding our moral circle to show basic respect to more of those who deserve it. Society has been wrong on so many fronts. We look back, mortified at the way we treated other humans only decades ago. We can cut out this part of our culture too, and end the needless torture and abuse of our non-human neighbors. Thank you.
Animals
for a high risk to public safety. California wildfires are more rampant than ever over the past decade. We have felt the effects of drought while storms are pouring over us, changing over time and causing disasters. The effect greenhouse emissions on animal agriculture will boost and amplify this. CAFOs, or concentrated animal feeding operations, will create vast amounts of greenhouse emissions and terrible air quality in surrounding areas. Grassroots organizations, DXE, have investigated farms in California and have found diseases like coronavirus, influenza, airborne diseases, open infected wounds happening in factory farms. This kind of cruelty has caught the attention of workers in the industry. As the global political spectrum is getting more set on population, food production, climate initiatives, improving treatment of animals, here in California we can take a bold step, and the first step is putting a moratorium on expanding slaughterhouses and factory farms. It is this bold vision that will push us forward into the future. Act now!
In all of human history, there have been injustice and oppression, and that's no different today. That is why we are here, to bring light to the root cause. We know of the struggles of the women's rights, civil rights, gay rights movements, and what they fought for. They also marched in the streets and fought the systems of oppression to gain the basic rights that they deserve now. You know some of the names of the activists like Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Chelsea Manning, and Evan Wolfson that made the world take notice and agree that there is an injustice that needs to be brought to the light. That is also why we are here today. But instead of fighting for just one group of people or cause, we are fighting for every sentient being on this planet. The animals are our fellow earthlings. Every year, trillions of lives are taken needlessly and brutally to satisfy human desires that are leading us well into the sixth mass extinction this planet is experiencing right now. If you are not aware, the animal agriculture industry is the #1 destructive force to our environment, to human health, and most definitely the animals. All of us are here and in this movement because we are all lucky enough to connect our empathy and see that there is no difference in the way I feel and the way a pig feels, for example. The reason why we value one animal's life and not another species' life is called speciesism. Like every other ism, it is about discrimination and oppression, because if we valued all sentient life and not just certain ones, things like race, color, and nationality would not be a separation to us. We would see that we would have more in common than we are different. When we look at how we are similar to animals, we find that we have much more in common than how we differ, especially in all the ways that matter. We realize that we have the same desires and wants as any animal when we put ourselves in their shoes. They do not want to be confined, tortured, and commodified or killed, just like you and I. Humanity in the future will look back on the achievements of the animal rights movement now as we do with other social justice movements. One day like civil rights or gay rights, and see how animal rights made the world a better place. Speciesism will be a thing of the past, and the greatest injustice of all will end. Imagine what that will look like if this world were to respect all life, not just some. Be on the right side of history for all future generations, and join us for total animal liberation!
Everybody out of the street! Out of the street! Everybody out of the street!
Thanks, everyone.
Back into the streets!
There's another one! Another one!
What do we want?
Move!
What do we
Move!
want?
There's another one!
What do we want? When do we want it? Say, when do we want it? One. Whoop! The street! Out of the street!
Oh, it's here?
No, they said there were 2 more coming.
I think it's here.
Let's get everyone on the sidewalk and keep going to the end of the street. Stay out of their way! Stay out of the way, but go on the sidewalk to the end of the street.